Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob, and today we'll be jumping into malicious compliance. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Our first story today comes to us from Tommy Knocker 42, How I Achieved Malicious Compliance with T. Let's jump right in. Hey y'all, I thought I would share one of my favorite stories of following someone's request and making them rethink their words. The main players are me, my younger brother, and the teacher we will call Mr. Shane. This happened in high school and my senior year and is my favorite story of being a smart butt. We have this teacher we'll call Mr. Shane. He was an older, very strict teacher who came to my rural Midwest town from inner city Chicago, so he thought he could handle just about anything a student threw at him. No one liked Mr. Shane. He was rude, loud, and for him, if you didn't do what he said, it was a one-way ticket to the office. Even the principal got tired of him sometimes. I was a quiet, nerdy, metalhead teenager who was on track to graduate early and earn a couple awards from the district. I put forth effort to get along with everyone. My younger brother hated Mr. Shane for many reasons, like reading mine and his IEPs, very confidential stuff normally, in front of the class, and managed to get away with it. Needless to say, Mr. Shane was incredibly unpopular. I used to bring a can of Arizona tea with me to school because it's dirt cheap and actually pretty tasty. If you've had it, you will understand how good it can be. Mr. Shane had a problem with this because I'm pretty sure he wasn't asserting his dominance. He thought he wasn't doing his job. I didn't distract people with the tea, but he was fed up with me and my brother calling him out on his stuff. So one day he told me not to bring any more because I didn't bring enough for everyone else. Challenge accepted. The very next day I stopped at the grocery store on my way to school and picked up 2 gallons of Arizona green tea along with red Solo cups. I let slip to one of my best friends that's also in the class, and he could barely contain his excitement. When time for class came, Mr. Shane walked in and looked smug, up until he saw me giving my classmates Arizona green tea. I even offered him a glass, and he exploded in anger and sent me to the office, before confiscating all my tea and cups. When I told the secretaries, they laughed and sent me in to talk to the vice principal. The vice principal was incredibly amused by my story, and a few minutes later, my brother came into the office as well with the gallons of tea and cups. Apparently, Mr. Shane lost it and was ranting to himself the rest of the school day over disrespectful students. He stopped teaching after that school year, and I like to think I had a hand in that. It's been a long time since I've seen a can of Arizona tea. I remember you used to get them for 99 cents, not sure what they are now, but it wouldn't be very expensive to get enough for a whole class. A nice bit of malicious compliance with a little bit of revenge. It's great to see so many people building up the KCC community, but the majority of you watching this video right now aren't actually subscribed. If you're enjoying this daily Reddit content, please hit that subscribe button. It's free and you can always reverse it later. Our next story today comes to us from Sultan of Sorrow. Do you know who I am? Let's jump right in. Been reading many of these malicious compliance stories and made me remember my own. So when you're working a gate or any sort of security post, you get used to some of the same people coming through and don't really need to check their ID, such as your relief, the same delivery driver that's already come through 5 times on just your shift, friends and or family, so you just wave them through. Counts as like visual confirmation. Well, we had some joker that was getting kicked out of the military and decided he didn't really care who was coming in, so would just wave through everyone whether he knew who they were or not. Well, lo and behold, leadership finds out and rips him a new one and comes down with a policy of visual confirmation is no longer an adequate means of access, and that we have to check every ID of every individual entering the installation. So we figure it's stupid, but hey, rules is rules. So the day goes on without much problem besides the random, serious, you know who I am, we were just hanging out and telling them, hey, I know, but policy has changed and it's 100% checks. And they realize, hey, you're right, things change all the time. Everything was going fine until base commander and 2-star comes through and we ID him. Do you know who I am? Why are you IDing me? Of course, sir, you're Major General Snuffy, base commander. Then why are you IDing me? Well, because the policy that you signed says specifically, and I quote, absolutely no one is allowed through by visual confirmation. So after a few choice words about how he's the base commander and saying he'll make sure it's dealt with appropriately, we get his ID and offer him his proper customs and courtesies, and off he goes. Well, not more than 3 minutes later, we get a call from Flight Chief about how dare we stop the base commander. We are never to do it again. And we're just like, well, the policy says to stop everyone and anyone. Yeah, the policy only lasted that shift until they changed it to pretty much no one but the top select individuals. Pretty much anyone with a picture on our wall was allowed visual confirmation. Everyone else had to be ID'd. Still was funny to stop the base commander due to his policy that he signed and didn't think it could possibly bite him in the butt. Wouldn't you be more afraid not to ID him coming through the day after that command came down? I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Our next story today comes to us from Domi Blushes 1998. Don't work overtime? No problem, boss. Let's jump right in. I, 22 female, work for a large retail chain in one of their smaller stores. Not a mega store, but still sizable. Each department has multiple people, manager, controller, and usually 2 to 4 floor workers. I'm one of the 2 floor workers in my section, and we can normally handle the deliveries, floor work, restocking, and customer service. That was until January. The manager took his time off, he worked through the festive season, the controller caught the dreaded you-know-what, and the other worker also chose to take her off time. She wasn't aware of the situation. This left little me to do the work of 4 people all by myself. With no manager, the merchandisers who could have helped me acted like my section no longer existed. I ended up working overtime through January and put in around 12 extra hours to ensure the store was at the expected level of order. Except they didn't pay me for the overtime. When I asked questions, the HR manager yelled at me, told me my overtime approval ended at the end of December, convenient, and best of all, he told me that I should quit if I'm going to have such a big mouth. It was made very clear that the extra work was not appreciated, and they just saw an opportunity for free labor. This is a shortened version of what happened. The man literally had me in tears, and this was in front of customers, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, cool. Time for some malicious compliance. I won't do any more overtime. Just the next month, an important visit was scheduled. The big boss was coming to check on us, and we had to be perfect. Here's the catch. My deliveries come in at 6 o'clock a.m. and 4 p.m. most days. They should be unpacked immediately. This is a 2-hour job at a minimum. Yeah, my shift is 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., so I just stopped helping with the second delivery. Even if there was no one there to do it, I went home. Shelves a mess, go home. No staff, go home. Delivery coming in, nah, go home. My manager asked me why I was no longer doing my job like I used to. I told what the HR manager said, also told my union rep. Guess who's not allowed to talk to me without a witness present now? The one major thing to come out of this, if you're in a union, never speak to HR or management without a union rep present. I mean, you can have conversations in the aisles, but anytime they want you to come into the office, you need to take your rep with you. Our next story today comes to us from D. Kaplinger, Burning My Lieutenant. Let's jump right in. I was a deputy sheriff for 12 years, 7 of which were spent in the courts. By the time this incident happened, I had been promoted to the position of chief of the court division. At first, I reported directly to a captain who was the chief of operations of the sheriff's office. He and I got along great, but then he moved on to greener pastures. Then, I was informed I'd be reporting to a lieutenant who was the chief of the detective division. The lieutenant and I did not get along at all, and still to this day, almost 10 years since I retired, I utterly loathe him. One day, he decided to pay a visit to the checkpoint where my operations desk was located. He left and came back about 20 minutes later with a write-up he expected me to sign. The reason? I wasn't wearing the standard black clip-on tie the division I was in charge of was supposed to wear. I told him I wouldn't wear their clip-on ties. He told me I had to, as our department policy required clip-on ties for safety, so people could not use our ties as a ligature to choke us to death. Several weeks before the encounter, I had purchased 4 or 5 regular ties, all in paisley prints, tied them into perfect length ties with a double Windsor knot and a perfect crease coming out from just below the knot. Then I made a major modification to the ties. It just so happened I was wearing one of them as he made a butt of himself. As he stood there trying to get me to take and sign the write-up, I told him I refused and requested an appeal to the sheriff. It was the first time I opted a direct appeal for the sheriff to decide. He had me sit in the hall as he went to talk to the sheriff, surely to set me up for failure. Then I was asked to enter. I sat down and the lieutenant demanded I explain why I would not follow the black clip-on tie policy. The policy existed for safety, so people could not use our ties as ligature to choke us to death. I knew what the policy said because I wrote it. When the sheriff was first elected, he asked each division chief to write up their own policies and procedures. My predecessor had made some minor changes to the policies for people in my division, but I thought they were too restrictive and needed some changes to inspire creativity. I rewrote the policies for my division and they were approved by the sheriff. I sat down and removed my tie clip, located about halfway down my tie, then pulled on my tie, which easily detached. See, after I bought them, I put them on one by one and tied them so they had the perfect length and knot on the tie. I added an extra 2 inches to the neck size, cut the tie in half, and sewed in Velcro, which would easily become hidden at the back of the neck. The sheriff thought the idea was sound, so he allowed it. I then pointed out a glaring problem which my lieutenant had caused. He made us wear lanyards with our department's initials repeatedly all the way around the lanyard, on which we would clip our agency's employee identification to. The lanyards were pretty wide, about 2/3 of an inch wide, and made of multiple layers, as it could be worn reversibly. My lieutenant spat out, "So?" At this point, I stood up and pulled as hard as I could on the lanyard, and as I knew would happen, it didn't budge at all, meaning our ties were safe, but the lanyard put us in danger of being choked, as they had no measure for quick release for safety. I didn't get a lot of chances to burn my lieutenant. We really hated each other, but when I did, the burning glare of the sheriff staring at my lieutenant was so worth it. It was a burning glare I'd see shot at my lieutenant several times, and with each one, I prayed our division would be taken from his purview. Just before I was forced into medical retirement, I really had developed 2 debilitating conditions. I got my wish. I got our judges to agree to a change in our uniforms, and without asking permission first, I had the deputies in my division to go to our uniform supplier to get measured. I did this on the premise we needed actual uniforms for special assignments, funerals for fallen officers and soldiers from the area, and most importantly, to help my deputies feel like deputies. I submitted a requisition request for 3 uniforms for each of my employees, and it was approved. This put us under the lieutenant serving as chief of the uniform division. Finally, someone I could actually get along with. I missed the job, but I don't miss my old lieutenant. Justice is a dish best served cold. I've got a few more stories of me absolutely burning my lieutenant. I may submit them as time goes on. I don't want to condone violence, but this would have been a much better story if he'd grabbed the lanyard of the lieutenant and pulled, don't you think? I mean, it probably wouldn't have turned out well for OP, but the karma for the lieutenant would have been perfect. Our last story today comes to us from Citizen Alpha. Citizen-dependent wife demands salute because of her husband's rank. Let's jump right in. There are a handful of rules to saluting in the American military. The when, why, and how is drilled into you from boot camp until the day you leave. Even the order in which the salutes are rendered have meaning. When it comes to vehicles, there are helpful insignia and stickers to indicate if it's an officer, such as a colored sticker located on the front windshield. My base was small enough where it was everyone's job at some point to do sentry duty at the front gate, which had a housing for military families. Sentry duty was pretty basic. You'd stop every vehicle, check IDs, and then wave them through. If they were an officer, you'd see it coming with those colored stickers, and after verifying the identity of the officer, you'd salute and send them on their way. One day while I was on duty, I approached a vehicle with an officer sticker, and there was only the officer's wife driving in the vehicle. I returned her ID, wished her a nice day, and waved her through, pausing with a stern look, "Where's my salute, Petty Officer OP?" Now, Karen here was wife to a higher-ranking officer and has clearly fallen under the impression people are saluting her somewhere along the way. Some of the junior enlisted might have even been saluting her as they're pretty easy to bully and more prone to F-ups. I politely replied, "Ma'am, salutes are only rendered to commissioned officers. angrily pointing her chubby little fingers at the front of her windshield toward her husband's officer sticker. "I have a sticker, and you need to salute the sticker." Curtly, I continued, "I'm afraid that sticker is not an officer either." Frustrated, she pulled through and left my post. My cover guy, the guy keeping me safe with a big pew-pew, and I watched her drive down the street and pull right into the administrative building with the top brass and huffed into the building as quickly as her soft, crappy body would take her. We exchange a look between us with wry smiles, knowing exactly where this is probably going. Later that day, we get a new official base-wide mandate. From here forward, all enlisted will salute vehicle stickers of officers, regardless of who's in the vehicle. Roger that. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. It's worth noting that when you salute an officer as enlisted, you do it first, and you hold that salute until you are saluted in return and they lower theirs. Only then do you lower your salute. It signals that you're saluting them and they're replying. Additionally, when saluting a group of officers, you generally direct your salute and the greeting to the highest ranking individual. Now, as far as I know, this stupid sticker salute order has no accommodation for how a 2004 Toyota Camry fits into the officer's pecking order. Additionally, if the car is unoccupied, it's not like that sticker is removed. After that order came through, we all began saluting stickers. Personally, I direct my salute to the sticker. I would also prioritize sticker salutes over officers. Let me tell you, walking through parking lots was a blast as I saluted empty cars on my way to wherever. More and more people saw me doing it, and more people started doing it. Not long after, the order was publicly rescinded, which hilariously had the balancing effect of never rendering a salute to anyone but a clearly known officer, cementing Karen never getting her unearned salutes. I don't know about you guys, but I thought this one was going to end with OP standing in a parking lot saluting a sticker on a car and not leaving because the sticker had yet to salute them back. Thank you to all 5 OPs for posting their stories in the Malicious Compliance subreddit. They are linked in the description down below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.